Brought to you by Dale Carnegie of Orange County. This is the 411 on Leadership podcast, where we discuss common sense leadership practices with executives in Southern California to transform you into the leader people want to follow. This is the 411 on Leadership podcast. My name is Steve Thomas, and to my left is John Campbell. Welcome to another podcast where we talk about inclusive leaders holding their teams accountable, and we've got a great guest in whom to have that discussion about. But John, not Brian, because Brian's our producer. That's who I want you to introduce.
Yeah.
Again, got to have coffee before the podcast.
That's right. You need to figure that out, man.
I do. After 6 months, you would figure I would have get it by now.
Get some caffeine. Hey, if you're listening, watching, wherever you're at this morning, if you've got ideas or thoughts or ever considered podcasting, make sure you reach out to Sitch Radio. Brian is the man. He'll get you set up. If you've got any questions about podcasting, you ask the question, you can send it over to Stitch Radio. You will see contact information in the notes. You can also look up at stitchradio.com. Also, if you're joining us this morning, we want to hear from you. We want your comments. So please add your comments, likes. It means a lot to us if you like and subscribe. We'd love to continue the conversation with you, even beyond today's conversation. So appreciate having you here.
And so thanks so much, John. And one of the things that we want to take the time to acknowledge and celebrate is today, or actually September the 15th, began Hispanic Heritage Month. So we want to recognize all those within the Hispanic community for the contributions that you've given, not only to the business community, but to us as a whole, our community. Interesting enough, I found this out, is that when the month began, actually the month coincides with other countries that are celebrating their Independence Day.
All right.
Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. They coincidentally, they have celebrated their independence, as in addition to Mexico. Mexico celebrated its independence from Spain September the 16th. And so initially, Hispanic Heritage was just for a week. However, it was something that was made month-long by George Bush. And so again, we want to take the opportunity to recognize the contributions of our brothers and sisters in the Hispanic community.
Our leaders with Hispanic heritage. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. And so with that being said, we're so fortunate to have Paula Garcia-Arsenault, who is the VP of Community and Home Buyer Services with Habitat for Humanity of Orange County. So in her role, Paula oversees home repair, neighborhood revitalization, and home ownership programs, which involves ensuring the success of the ongoing family selection process, home repairs, and advocating for families in our community. Paula comes with over 30 years of commercial and consumer banking experience in leadership and management roles. We were in Chase Bank, Independence Bank, Farmers and Merchants Bank as well, and currently serves as a volunteer and board member for a number of organizations, including chairwoman of the Santa Ana Chamber of Commerce, which I believe that's how you first connected with her, John. Yeah. Orange County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, High School Inc., Foundation, Kiwanis, National Hispanic Business Women's Association, and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I think I have everything. And then we also found out that Paula is also a big, huge Dallas Cowboys fan, which please don't tune off if you don't like the Cowboys.
Yeah. We're still glad she's here, despite that. Paula, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning.
Paula, we're just so grateful and so glad to have you on the podcast. And so as you start out this podcast, tell us a little bit about your leadership journey and what brought you to this point in your leadership career.
Sure, absolutely. So thank you. First of all, thank you to both of you for this opportunity and doing what you're doing to help folks in the community like myself. So thank you. I've been working since I was 16. Very excited. Grew up in Orange County. Grew up in Santa Ana, and first two jobs were customer service, McDonald's and Disneyland. During high school and college, and I think that's what started me leading into the sector of helping folks, helping people, and helping the community. I was just one of those young gals, Hispanic gals that parents worked hard. My brothers and sisters were all trying to finish school and do what we needed to do. And I thought I have to work to help pay for that cheerleading uniform that mom and dad couldn't do, and put gas in the little square back that was purchased for me when I was 16. So, I worked in the customer service field, knew there was a need for the community, and decided that I needed to get out of retail when I was working at Disneyland. Loved it, but only every other weekend didn't help. I saw an ad for a very, very small bank in the community and went into banking when I was 20 years old. And from there, just worked really hard. Teller, new accounts, personal banker, business banker, and almost 30 years, decided at that point that I wanted to give back to the community even more. And that's how I ended up in the nonprofit world. I will rewind. In banking, great opportunity, learned everything I needed to know about customer service, leadership, management. But my banks that I worked for were very, very gracious and let me be involved in the community. 20 years, I was able to sit on nonprofit boards, help in the community, do all that good stuff that you needed to do. But it was time for me to go hands-on and work. And that's what happened. I jumped into the nonprofit world 4 years ago.
Okay.
Had a great opportunity with Habitat, and that's where I've been, and continued the outreach, as you just said, in the community to help wherever I can.
Let me just say, some of the best people in the world have a banking background. Wouldn't you say, Steve?
I say so. I mean to brag, but I'm curious though, Paula. What caused the shift? Because speaking of banking, banking. The perception, there's truth to it too, but it's all for profit, and then now nonprofit. So it's the goals are different. You're not so much making money. So for you, what caused that shift for you to transfer from the banking community to now, or a profit institution, now nonprofit focused on the community?
Sure. Well, it's very interesting that you say that, because people do believe the not-profit is not there to make the money, but actually we are. We are a business having to keep the doors open,
right?
And we're raising money for the cause. That's the difference, the mission.
Right.
But the big reason I shifted, because I was out there in the community and I saw the need. And don't get me wrong, I owe everything I've learned in my career to my banking career. But doing commercial loans and personal loans for a business owner was rewarding, but helping find a family purchase their first home in a community or county that they thought could never afford, there's just no comparison. And that's where I said I needed to jump, because I felt like there was so many great organizations in Orange County that I needed to help and bring my skills and help. And I think with, especially, even Habitat, and to the mindset of both of you, is that running like a business, bring in money and bring in more money to help build more homes in the community.
Let me ask if I can speak back to that, or ask you to speak back to that.
Sure.
So you're at a place of leadership. You're recognized as a community leader, and you talked about learning some of those things in that process at the bank. Did you have a mentor? Did you have somebody that's spoken to you or felt like resourced you and gave you the tools to get to those leadership roles?
That's such a good question. Yes, absolutely. I had many mentors and leaders through the years. And I think that's why I'm where I'm at, especially as a woman and as a Hispanic woman. I just think every opportunity that was given to me, I took. And I say that in banking because, as many of you know, when you're in banking, especially as a manager, you're asked to manage different locations. I went from managing Orange County locations, Newport Beach, Fashion Island, all the way to Inland Empire, Paris, California.
Wow.
So, and that was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to learn the community. And through that, I had, regional managers, district managers, but more importantly, I had a lot of mentors that were women. And I saw what they were going through, and most of them had the background of the community. That's what I saw was success. Sitting on a chamber board or being a chamber member, Kiwanis, just these different organizations. And yes, absolutely, mentors were important in my life, even to the point where I just met with a former colleague 2 years ago, who is now 72 years old. God bless her. And still giving me advice. And I used to work with her, 15 years ago.
That's awesome. And it's important, as we've talked about as leaders creating an environment that is welcoming to everybody. You know, we framed it in that the idea of inclusiveness and the importance of seeing somebody in leadership who resembles me. And it sounds like you were able to have that and to see somebody, whether it was female, I don't know if you had Hispanic leaders also, but those in the community. You come from a community that's heavily Hispanic. Did you see those people there? And now you get to be that person for somebody else. What a fabulous thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's huge for me. That's one of my goals in my personal life, is to make sure I'm giving back to the community, not just building homes, but to the upcoming community leaders, and not necessarily just women, young adults all across the board. And that's why I think my passion, for instance, with High School Link Foundation, helping the high school students, the Orange County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, being an advisor with the Youth Chamber, is helping those folks grow, because they're our next leaders. And that's something that's very personal to me, is helping them.
Yeah.
What would you say is a lesson that you've learned in your journey to this point now? What would you say is that lesson that you would tell yourself, let's say 20 years ago, that, hey, you know what? If you would apply this, then you probably would be a little further along. So, you know, what would be that lesson that you would share to your former self, and also to all of us as well, as relates to, you know, moving or increasing our influence in our leadership and in our leadership journey, excuse me.
Well, it's kind of funny that you say that, because time is flying by so quickly. I mean, we all probably think, my gosh, here we are already in the holidays, but really you think 5-10 years ago, so forth. And I tease us as bankers aren't always the best financial folks. And I tease all the youngins that I mentor right now, is put your money away for your retirement. Put the college fund away for those children that you're going to have. So I would say, take that advice that you're sometimes giving. We're sometimes better as giving advice than listening to ourselves. So I think that's it, is really understanding time is going to fly, and make sure the goals that you've set, that you're really doing that. If it's financial, if it's growth, if it's finishing up school, taking more classes to help you personally, to do it, because time flies by so quickly. And I remember so many mentors always telling me, you know, oh, in 5 years, 10 years, and you just think, oh, I have plenty of time. And here you are. So I would say, literally listen to the advice you give, and take today and make sure you're taking care of yourself, whatever way, health, financial, whatever it is.
That's so true. We're so used to, you know, giving, you know, great advice to others. And sometimes I'm surprised when somebody tells me, you know, some good advice. I'm gonna say, oh man, that sounds pretty good. And then I'll be like, hey, where'd you get it? This is, I don't know, Steve, you told me this about a few years ago. Like, oh, okay. You should listen to it more often. But the honesty, the truth there is that, you know, being in a position where we are practicing what we preach, right? I mean, essentially, that's really what it is.
Right.
And as we're talking about this whole, or we're going to talk about this whole idea of being accountable, I mean, we have to be accountable to ourselves with the things that we say and the things that we're trying to direct our teams to do. By the way, we're talking with Paula Garcia-Arsenault, excuse me, with Habitat for Humanity here in Orange County. And so if you have any comments, questions for Paula, feel free to put that in the chat. This is an interactive podcast. We want to hear from you. And so, Paula, as we're talking about this idea of inclusive leadership, and we've been talking about this for a number of weeks, and we'll be bringing this down to a close in the next couple, you know, we've defined it pretty broadly. However, we'd like to hear from you. Like, what is your view of inclusive leadership, or what does an inclusive leader mean to you, and how does that look like in the teams that you lead at Habitat for Humanity?
Well, I looked up the definition of inclusive leadership this weekend, because I just wanted to see what it said, and it said, you know, not word by word, but doing something different, or doing something, and, you know, holding yourself accountable to that. And that's just it. I wouldn't ask my team to do anything that I wouldn't do. And we're all equal on that team. And I say this all the time. Don't be afraid as a leader or as a manager to ask for help. And I tease my youngins, you know, they're so smart, IT, social media. I'm always asking for help, and I want to learn. I need to continue to learn all the time. So again, holding them accountable means you have to hold yourself accountable constantly, and learning and not being afraid to ask for help. And if that means from your team or a colleague or a mentor, I think that's the thing, and never ask them to do something that you wouldn't be afraid to do yourself.
So if I can drill down a little
Sure.
deeper on that, Paula. So, when we throw around the term accountability, I think immediately we think of like punishment, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And it just has that connotation of like, okay, man, I'm not doing something, I'm about to be, corrected or something to that regard. So with that being said, what is your perception of accountability, and what does that look like on your team as it relates to you keeping someone on your team accountable?
Sure. I would say accountability, and you're right, that sounds like it's a harsher word than it really is, but just being responsible, taking ownership of whatever it is. And I think I'm really good at asking the team and setting expectations.
Okay.
Sitting down with the team, if it's a new project or new program or new duty, sitting down with them and talking with them, and making sure to get their buy-in. And if I don't have their buy-in, ask them why. What is it? Are you afraid? Do you not understand? And let's talk through this together and figure it out. And if I don't know, then let's find out together. And then always summarizing at the end of our conversations, making sure that they did get it, that we're on the same page, because what I might have said, they didn't hear that the way I thought I said it, and just going through and summarizing. And then for me, is key is over communication. Constantly communicating with my team. I tease all the time is copy me on that email.
Okay.
Even if you think I don't need to be, because sometimes as managers, our team thinks they're too busy. I don't want to bother them, or I don't want to ask them. No, over communicate, because then let me choose if I want to delete that email or if I want to get engaged with that. So I think just, again, summarizing with your team, making sure expectations are the same, they understand, and over communicating is huge.
That's awesome. It's funny that we were talking about football earlier, because in the football field, there's metrics that you can judge, right? Did I get into the end zone? But that's not the only way to hold your team accountable, right? And we know that you've got 4 downs to get 10 yards. So there's milestones along the way before you get there. And then even at the end, it's not just the end, like scoring once. You didn't win the game because you scored once. What does that look like for you on your team when you're setting those expectations? What are some things that you can talk to leaders today to practice? What are some practical expectations that they can implement to try to help them?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it could be as little as them turning in that report or responding to that email that maybe you knew they were having challenges with. We deal with a lot of families and cities, so there's a lot of emails, and they're not always maybe so positive. And to some people, that's hard, dealing with conflict or things of that sort. But as little as knowing that they did something that they were somewhat uncomfortable with and accomplishing that, giving them that little, hey, good job, or thank you for reaching out to me and including me. Just that little piece, and not to go off too much, but I remember that many, many years ago from a former manager. The little things mean a lot to people. The thank you at the end of the day, just for being here, or thank you for taking that extra time, or staying later, or in the morning. This is a huge thing for me. Making sure you acknowledge everybody. Walk through the building and say, good morning, how was your weekend? And just that little minute, to me, when my manager or whoever does that, it means a lot to me, because you care. And it's not forced. It's just talking and checking in. And if that's 30 minutes of your morning when you first get in, so be it. So I just think, again, you just got to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
What I like about there are a couple of things that stood out to me as you were talking, Paula. One is the idea when we talk about, accountability and what that looks like on our teams. You had mentioned setting expectations, right? Like, I mean, it's hard to hold people accountable to something that there's no sort of expectation, or there's nothing to hold them accountable to, right? So it first begins with us setting those expectations. I mean, from an organization standpoint, what's our mission? What's our vision? What are our values? Specifically on our teams, what's the mission statement for our team? I mean, you've run a couple of different teams. And so, what is that specific mission for your team, and how does that fit the overall vision of not only Habitat for Humanity in Orange County, but just Habitat for Humanity International? And so, and as to that, we're able to hold, people accountable to that vision. One of the values is obviously creating that sense of belonging. And so what are we then as leaders doing to create that sense of belonging on our team? Obviously practicing that ourselves with what you mentioned, Paula, which is like, hey, taking a few minutes every day, connecting with the people on your team, seeing how they're doing, seeing what's going on with them, holding ourselves accountable to creating that belonging, and then also utilizing that as we're talking to people on our team. Well, how are you then creating also that sense of belonging? How are you paying attention, or how are you fulfilling the mission for your for your team and for the rest of the group? So very key points that you mentioned, Paula. That's very helpful for us as leaders. And so again, we're talking with Paula Garcia-Arsenault, and she is here with us. And if you have any questions, comments for her, go ahead and put that in the comments section. We want to recognize that. And we want to, while we have Paula, we want to be able to just have those discussions. And so if you have any questions, feel free to put that in the comments section. If you have any comments, also put that in the comment section as well. And so as we look at, well, let's go here. Habitat for Humanity. We all know what that is. We have an idea what that is. And if you don't, you can go to the show notes and you can go to the website, Habitat for Humanity at Orange County, Habitat for Humanity OC, I believe.com. It's in the show notes. And so what's going on in the community, Paula? I know that's something that you personally love to be able to invest in the community, and this is the perfect vehicle to do that. I know that you also work with a couple of people that have been on this show, Charles Antis being one of them. I know you're very familiar with him and have that connection. What's going on with Habitat for Humanity here in Orange County? What are the latest projects and things that are going on here?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking. We just finished a 3-year project out in Fullerton. We just finished our phase 3, actually doing a little get together next weekend to celebrate many, many years in Fullerton. So we had 12 homes, and we just completed phase 3, and those were our lower income homes. So we're really excited about having a great partnership with the city of Fullerton. And right now we're building in the city of Stanton. We're building 6 homes, what we call moderate workforce homes.
Okay.
It's very interesting housing. Everybody knows housing right now, especially in California, especially in Orange County, is just very expensive, and it's continuing. We're even working with moderate income folks, because even our average folks, our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers cannot own a home in Orange County, and there's a need. And so we're building 6 homes right now in Stanton. Okay. We're in the process of selecting families to purchase those homes. So I would love anybody in the community who is interested in purchasing a home is to come visit our website, take a look. The first step is to attend a 1-hour orientation. You will learn everything about our program. And even if you're not interested in our program, you'll be educated on what it takes to purchase a home, period. So we're doing that community outreach. And then if they're interested, what the next steps are to becoming a Habitat program family is what we call it, because it is a program to purchase one of our homes. But we love that. We're building right now. And then in the future, right now, we do have some struggles. As everybody knows, Orange County, there's not a lot of land. So we're working really closely with our cities to try to find more land so we can build more affordable housing. Trying to look out of the box. Maybe there's some folks out there that own land and they're holding on to it. If you want to make a difference, please, reach out to us. We can work with you and we can build some homes. But that's what we're trying to do, is just put our community, our folks who never thought they could own a home, rent skyrocketing. We'd love to put them in a home. They can have a mortgage, purchase the home of their dreams, and make a difference in their lives.
What can people do to volunteer and or give? What does that look like?
Sure. Thank you so much. So yeah, absolutely. Again, same website. Come and visit us at, of course, you said www.habitatoc.org. Volunteering. We build our homes with volunteers. We have a restore that we're looking for volunteers to put furniture together.
Do you ever use teams?
Absolutely.
So if you're a leader,
yes,
and we know that getting your team together outside of the office, oftentimes brings your team together. It helps you learn. Sometimes you learn stuff about people you never knew. You didn't know that lady was handy with a hammer. And guess what? She's putting stuff together or building furniture.
Yep.
So could
Yes.
leaders coordinate
Yes.
and bring some teams together?
That's one of our fundraising mechanisms, and people aren't aware of that. Is a company can come out and do a team build,
Okay.
and they donate, depending on what level and what they would like out of it. And that's a great piece. We also have a fundraiser coming up by chance called Leaders Build.
Okay.
And that's where corporations and organizations are going to donate, and they're going to come out and do a full day of activities. Charles Antis is one of our team leads for that. We would love for any corporations, organizations, or even individuals that are interested to come out. Again, they can call me personally. They can, send us an email, whichever, if they're interested. But we're always looking for volunteers. That's what Habitat Orange County is based on. It's volunteer.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And so if you are looking at volunteering with your team, go ahead and reach out to Paula. We have her contact information as part of the show notes. And so please feel free to reach out to her as well. And Paula, as we bring this podcast to a close, we always get advice from our leaders within our community. And as we're talking about the importance of us creating a sense of belonging within our teams, and also holding them accountable, what would you say is that one practice that leaders could put into place this week to become that leader that holds their team accountable? Mind you, we're not punishing them, but accountability, I think we could all agree it's more of a directing people and guiding people. Accountability is huge in that. So what can we as leaders do to hold our teams accountable this week?
I think I touched base a little bit on it, but I would say definitely touch base with your individuals, not just the teams as a whole. Sometimes the one-on-ones is very important.
Right.
And I know our schedule sometimes gets so busy that we're like, oh, we'll touch base next week. But that 15 minutes or 30 minutes with each team member is very, very important, just to find out where they're at. Take a walk outside, take them to coffee, or just stop somewhere and talk with them. So I think, again, engaging with your team and making sure everybody's on the same page, it's a huge difference.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Paula. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for stopping by and joining us today. And even though you're a Cowboys fan, we still appreciate you. We appreciate, but that doesn't take away from your amazing leadership.
What John's forgetting to say is that he is a Charger fan, so he's a little upset with me today, but that's okay.
A little hurt. Yesterday was painful.
That was a hard win, so
Thank the kicker.
I'll take it.
Which team? You can thank our kicker too.
Exactly.
So,
Sorry.
That's
John.
all right. Hey, but Steve, going forward, I know that with OC Dale Carnegie, there's things for leaders too. If you're looking to build those skills, I know that delegation is such a big thing that you can learn out of the leadership training for managers. I mean, just an amazing thing, and how to process some of those things. What are some things that as leaders can do to take that next step in a practical way to invest in themselves? Yeah.
So you had mentioned the program that we do have upcoming on our calendar entitled Leadership Training for Managers. And the thing I appreciate about this program is we equip leaders with those skills and processes that help those leaders to lead well. And part of that is the idea of accountability. And where that fits in is when we delegate tasks to people on our team, making sure that we're not taking it back or putting it into limbo, but that we're empowering our team by delegating those tasks and holding them to that. So we talk about that. We talk about how do we coach our teams effectively, and a huge part of that is holding them accountable. And so we talk about different strategies on which leaders can hold their teams accountable, not as a punitive measure, but as a measure and as a strategy to make people on their team better, which in turn makes the organization better. So our program, Leadership Training for Managers, that program is coming up in the month of October the 6th. We have that in a 7-day or a 7-week or 3-day format. Visit our website that's on the show notes as well, ocdalecarnegie.com, to see those specific dates.
Thanks so much for joining us. As Mondays, we get started for this week, and we get a chance to find ways to invest in ourselves as a leader and hear from great people. Thanks again, Paula, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Paula, we're just so happy to have you join us. And thank you all for joining us as well. Please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. If you do have questions, go ahead and put that in the comments, whether you're watching via LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook. We will address those comments and questions as they come in. And so, as a reminder, remember that managers light a fire under people while leaders light a fire in people. Have a great week.